Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a large crochet flower, and it's really quite simple. So I'm using some of the Hobby Lobby I Love This yarn with the H 5.0 millimeter hook, and you want to begin with your slip knot on your hook and then go ahead and chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then what you're going to do is you're going to do 6 double crochets into the first chain. So yarn over and then go back into the first chain that you made there and do 6 double crochets all into that first chain. So there's 1, and then there's 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then there's 5, and then there's our 6. That loosens up because that's part of our slip knot, so I just tug on my loose end there to tighten that again. Now we're going to make that into our circle. So we're going to turn that around here and insert the hook into the top of the first double crochet that we made. So we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So go and find the top of the first one that you made. This is the top of the first one that I made. And then make a slip stitch to connect the first and the last. And then I'm just going to tighten up my beginning end there, the beginning of my slip knot, and then tighten up my yarn. And that's round 1. So then round 2, chain 2, and then 3 double crochets into the same stitch. So right here, there's 1, same stitch, 2, and a third one into the same stitch. So that creates our first petal, and then chain 2, slip stitch into that same stitch right here. Okay, so create a slip stitch there. And then chain 1. And then slip stitch into the next stitch. So slip stitch into the top of the next double crochet. So that moves you over to where you want to start your next petal. And then chain 2, and then 3 double crochets into the same stitch. That'll create your next petal for you. And then slip stitch into the same stitch. And then we're going to repeat that pattern all the way around. So again, we're going to chain 1, then slip stitch into the next stitch, chain 2, then 3 double crochets into the same stitch, chain 2, slip stitch into the next stitch, slip stitch into the same stitch, and then do that all the way around until you've got 6 of these little petals, and I'll meet you up at the end. Okay, so I've just finished that round of petals and I have my 6 petals, so that's what it looks like. And I'm just finished with my chain 2 and my slip stitch into the same stitch. So then to go on to round 3, you chain 3, 2, and 3, and that's going to go in behind the first petal, and we're going to slip stitch it to that chain 1 space from the previous round. So we're going to do a slip stitch in there. And that's going to create a foundation row for the next row of petals to sit on. So we're going to go do a row of petals, and then a foundation row, and then a row of petals, and then a foundation row, and then a final row of petals for this flower. So then another chain 3, 2, 3, and then a slip stitch into that chain 1 space. Then another chain 3, and tuck it behind the petals each time. And then another slip stitch into that chain 1 from the previous round. So do that all the way around so that you have so that you have 6 chain 3 spaces, and then I'll meet you back up at the end and show you what that looks like. So that's what it looks like at the end of round 3. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chain 3 spaces. So then after I've slip stitched into my last chain 1 space, I'm right back at the beginning where I started. So then what you can do is you can go ahead and start on round 4, which is chain 2, and then 5 double crochets into your first chain 1 space. Oh, I'm sorry, your first chain 3 space. So 5 double crochets along that chain that you made. To make the second row of petals. And then chain 2, slip stitch on that chain 3, and then chain 1 and slip stitch over to the next chain 3. And then chain 2, and then 5 double crochets along the next chain 3. There's 4, and then there's 5, and then chain 2, and then a slip stitch onto the chain, and then a chain 1, and then a slip stitch over to the next chain. So then continue around like that until you have made 6 of those petals, and I'll meet you back up at the beginning. Okay, so there we go. I've just ended with my slip stitch into the same stitch to finish off that petal. So there's my 6 petals of that round, my second round of petals. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain 4. For round 5, we're going to create our next foundation row. And that's going to go in behind this petal. So chain 4, and then slip stitch into that chain 1 space from the previous round. Then chain 4 again. And slip stitch into the chain 1 space of the previous round, and just do that all the way around until you've got another 6 of these chain 4 spaces, and I'll meet you back up at the end of this round. Okay, so there's what the back looks like after you finish that foundation row. And then what you do to keep going on the petals is you chain 2, and then 6 double crochets for your petal. So let's see what that's 4, right? Okay, there's 4 and 5. And there's 6, and then once again chain 2, slip stitch into the same space, chain 1, and slip stitch over to the next chain to start your next petal. So then you repeat that all the way around, and that'll give you a 3-layer flower. And then if you want to keep going, there's instructions to continue and keep doing a few more rounds. So I will finish off this round and show you what that looks like. So now I've just finished, and it ends with a slip stitch, so I just cut it off and pulled it tight, and then you can leave a long tail for fastening onto your project if that's what you're planning to do with it. And then there's instructions for continuing on. If you want to make it even bigger, that's what it looks like after 3 rounds of petals. So that's what I've left it with for now. This is what I used on my waffle stitch headband that I have the instructions for in another video. And then there's also instructions on the Daisy Cottage Designs blog if you want to do a little bauble center, which I've chosen to leave off of the projects that I've done so far, and which I'm not going to do the instructions for in this video. But there it is. There's this very simple flower that's really fast and really easy, and that I love the look of. I love the look of it without the center. You could also put a button in the center. You could do a different color center. You could do different color petals. So experiment with it and make it your own. And as always, please like and subscribe for more videos, and thank you so much for watching.